And tell you here on the show how the mainstream media decide to put out their own narrative, They put out their own story so that you, the general public, decide, well, their narrative, their story. We saw an interview recently with someone from the Financial Times over here on Channel 4, where she used an expletive to describe the latest government incentive regarding savings, pensions and tax. That's the level we're now at, and of course when you think about it, that made all the headlines. There was no solution, no remedy from her, seemingly though she just wanted her 5 minutes of fame. This is the problem now when you look at all mainstream media, whether it be TV shows, writers, digital copywriters, you name it, they want to jump on the headline. So this particular royal connected sort of soundbite is proving exactly just how bad the mainstream media have become. And as ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here in the very heart of London. Thank you so much as ever for joining me today. Keep well, whatever you're doing. Nice to have your company as ever. I wanted to really highlight this story to you because as ever here on the show, we like to prove to you exactly the problems that incur while being part of the mainstream media. As I say, I report for the media around the world. We try to give a very strong and definitive narrative, We tell you the truth that's gone on as we see it. But more importantly, we're there to investigate and look into situations that in fact the mainstream media might have other ideas for. As I've told you before, there are certain channels over here, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, that seemingly want to push a negative against the government, whichever government it is in. They're all desperate for ratings. And when you look at something like GMB, and we told you before about its host Susanna Reid, she claimed during an interview with the former British Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Boris Johnson, that there was a lady living on the bus because she couldn't afford to heat her home. We never met this woman again, so clearly, where did she disappear to? How suddenly has that now become a non-story? But they were quite happy to push it at that time, including Miss Reid for her own publicity. But it's this particular story that's caught my eye. You will see, of course, this is one of the very first Prime Minister's questions that the Right Honourable British Prime Minister Liz Truss attended at Buckingham Palace with His Majesty the King, right? And what everybody's picked up on is this particular narrative, as where when she walked into the room, first of all they're criticising her curtsy, certainly could do with some work, but I don't think that's the most paramount thing right now. But then of course you hear Prince Charles say, oh nice to see, oh dear, oh dear. They're reading that as, oh dear, what a terrible mess the economy's in, what a mess you're making of the government. When you watch the film further on, and remember, we're not paramount to exactly what goes on in that private audience once a week with His Majesty and his Prime Minister. But what His Majesty was referring to, that I've been told, really was the actual downpour that Liz Truss got caught in while coming from Downing Street to Buckingham Palace. And basically it was an oh dear terrible weather type of sort of quip. Nothing more, nothing less. But when you read it and see it and the way they clip it, all of these political journalists out there are trying to make you think that His Majesty the King is despairing of our latest British Prime Minister. Simply not the case. But as ever on the show, we like to tell you the truth. It's out there, the video is out there. If you wish to find it, we can't use it for copyright reasons. But the bottom line is, they're not interested in telling you that. As I say, they have their own narrative. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.